Les amis, on est toujours à Distant Worlds et j'ai le plaisir d'avoir avec moi Arnie Roth, qui est le chef d'orchestre et aussi producteur du concert Final Fantasy Distant Worlds. Nice to meet you, Arnie.
Yes, thank you. Merci.
I always see you on stage, and for once I'm able to talk to you, so I'm very happy.
Great. Me too.
Yeah. You have a big career in music industry. You are a musician, you're a composer, and you now are director, a producer for Final Fantasy Distant Force. And how did you begin this adventure in video games industry?
Well, specifically with video games, I was working a lot in film industry in Los Angeles and in recording projects for many different productions, ballet, opera, pop, many different genres of music. And one of my colleagues mentioned that there had been concerts of video game music in Japan.
Yes. It works really well there.
Well, since 1999, with Square Enix was producing their own concerts of Final Fantasy music. And at the time that we were speaking about this, I was music director and conductor of an orchestra in Chicagoland Pops Orchestra. So I was programming concerts all the time, 3 or 4 concerts a year. Pop things or semi-classical, all kinds of different things, but with full orchestra and chorus. And there had never been a concert of video game music in the United States at that point. This was 2002, 2003.
Yes,
right?
a time ago.
So we decided to try it, and it was Final Fantasy. It was Dear Friends, music from Final Fantasy, which was a previous tour. And it wasn't really a tour. It was actually only designed to be one concert.
Yeah, but it worked so well that it began a tour.
That's essentially what happened. Was that was the first time that I met Nobuo Uematsu, and worked with Square Enix. And they asked me to continue. There were about 4 or 5 other concerts that year, 2005, and I conducted them. We had a fantastic series of concerts, and that was my introduction to the fans of Final Fantasy.
Yes.
And how they appreciate the music specifically of Final Fantasy. So that was the beginning of that. Then things developed with Square Enix and with Nobuo. They asked me to conduct another concert in Los Angeles, More Friends, music from Final Fantasy. Nobu's Black Mages played on that as well.
Oh, Black
with
Mages,
orchestra.
I love it.
Yeah. And then after that, in 2006, Square Enix asked me to develop. Well, actually, they invited me to Japan to conduct Voices, which was another concert they produced.
So you've been able to travel all this time for this concert.
And then Distant Worlds started in 2007.
Did you play any Final Fantasy before? Before all that?
Before that, no, not at all.
And now?
Now, actually, on my phone, I have Final Fantasy VII.
Oh, you play on your phone?
But
yeah.
it's too difficult.
It's too difficult. Have you tried the 9 that recently
I know
released?
it's very popular.
Yes, I love this one.
I have.
too.
You know that Nobu plays all the games.
Oh,
He actually does. Yeah.
Still now? Do
Yeah,
you
no,
see
he's-
you take the planes together sometimes?
Well, he
You
has
see
some.
him play?
He has some favorites, but he does play all of them. And
nice.
no, the thing is that I have to work on the music specifically, and I tend to work directly with the composers, not just Nobu-san, but Hitoshi Sakimoto, Noshi Mizuta. I mean, I could go on here. Yoko Shimomura, all of the Masashi Hamauzu, all the composers from the series. So I tend to spend more time with them directly, and examples of how the music not only was used in the video game, but orchestrations and how we're going to present it on the stage.
You've seen, I'm sure you heard that there's a lot of kind of music like One Winged Angel or Iris Team that are really the fans' favorite. And do the composers or the fans, do they tell you why exactly? Or have you checked why?
Well, yes, I've done some research, of course, but I think they don't always know why. I mean, in something like Aerith's theme, it's a beloved character. Historically, the first time that a character actually died in a
Yes.
video game. So it was, because that game was so popular, it was such an important
Moment.
emotional moment for
Yes.
the fans. One can understand why the association of the music with that scene and that character would be a powerful one. But something like One Winged Angel, it really, a lot of the popularity of the music of Final Fantasy, I think, has to do with the combination of Final Fantasy being an RPG, a role-playing game, and the style that Nobuo Uematsu started back in 1987,
Yeah.
which is that every single character is going to have its own theme,
Team.
every
Battle.
every important battle, every important journey, relationship, all these things have their own, what we call leitmotifs, melodies. And because his writing style, Nobuo, as opposed to some of the other composers, but Nobuo's writing style is much more about melody and structure.
Yes. True.
In many ways, it's very classical. Even if he's doing a rock and roll piece or jazz or whatever it might be, it's all about symmetry, structure and melody and development of melody. And because of that, these are the same tributes of composers like Beethoven, Brahms, Tchaikovsky. It's all about melody first and structure. And so for that reason, I feel that the fans hear the same melodies over and over again with their most beloved characters.
Yes.
And so they associate that music. I think this is the magic of why the music is so deeply appreciated with Final Fantasy. And it's not that way with all video games, as you
That's
know.
true.
Yeah.
And I think I was saying to Nobuo Uematsu-san that Japanese video games like RPG, they always have some melodies that we always remember, even when we end the game, even when we stop playing the game, we will always remember.
Right.
I think it's really typical of Japanese games. There's a lot of melodies. And I play a lot of Occidental games too, but it's more about the atmosphere, it's
Right.
like Hollywood movies,
That's right.
It's
Right,
not
where you
really-
might have one main theme, but all of the gameplay itself is maybe not as memorable in terms of the
Yeah,
music.
it's not really memorable.
Loops of things, percussion, whatever it might be. This is different, where the melody really does carry through on all this. And then the melody develops. It goes into its own variations, and then they bring back a character or a theme later in the series.
Yes.
Battle on the Big Bridge, comes back later, that kind of
Yes.
thing. One Winged Angel, it's all over the place. So, yeah.
And what is the main difference? You've been composing for movie. Now you're seeing a lot of video games composers. What is the main difference between composing for a movie and for a video game?
Well, in many ways, there's a lot of similarities in that many composers might sketch out ideas based around a storyboard, what we call a storyboard. It would be kind of what this is, like a cartoon version of what the scene of the movie might be. This is the director's vision of what a particular scene might be. And so there's a little synopsis, maybe a little dialogue, and you have an idea of the development of the character. So composers might early on be working on a particular melody or a theme and say, this will apply, but they can't really finish any of this until the final scene is shot, and they can actually finish the composition. So in that way, video games are somewhat similar to movies.
Yes.
I know in many cases, 90% of the writing for the movie is done just at the very end, the very last process. It's the last step after everything has been shot, and it's usually in a very short period of time that, the movie runs late, the release date is such and such, and it's getting later and later. Finally, they finish all the shooting, and they have something, and they give the footage to the composer and say, hurry up, quickly write something, this kind of thing. So it is useful to try to sketch out some ideas and themes in advance.
Okay.
And I think that that's probably what most video game composers do as well. But they can't really finish it until the entire scene is finished.
So you've been working with some Japanese personalities and composers, and you're American. So there influence that you have thanks to their culture, thanks to their way of working, or maybe the way they feel the music? Do you feel like it's different and that you can learn from them? Like you can learn from them, I mean.
It's a lot of questions.
It's a lot, yes.
Yeah. You know, of course, I've learned a tremendous amount working with them. I think, well, there's a couple things. One thing is that the design of the music within the video game is a little bit different, adapting it for the concert stage.
Yeah.
Right? You know, they're typically set up to be some kind of a loop of some sort, a 90-second or 2-minute loop, maybe while you're doing the gameplay itself. And to then turn that into a fully formed concert piece.
Yes.
Some of the most difficult things that we have are deciding on introductions and endings and how we're going to modify that. The actual theme itself, you know, years ago when Nobu was writing, it was only 8-bit data. It was,
yes.
You just had a computer chip and you had 3 or 4 sounds on that computer chip. It was more clear what we had to do to orchestrate all those things. It was more of an open palette. Now, with 16-bit data, they're recording actual audio, vocal symphonies, rock bands, whatever it might be. So it's a more obvious thing. This is, you know, a final finished orchestration, and we are playing a lot of those with Distant Worlds. You know this already, but Distant Worlds is dedicated to playing the music as close to the way as fans heard it in the game.
Because
right.
They have to remember it was like this.
Well, and there are different projects out there that are more arrangers' fantasies. You know, an arranger writes a long-form fantasy based on themes and I've conducted many of those as well with the VDR, Radio Symphony and others, Royal Stockholm Philharmonic. Those are fantastic to play, but it's a very different project than Distant Worlds or our chamber music series,
yes.
A New World, intimate music from Final Fantasy. Same structure, that we play as close as possible to the original.
They have their different kind of style. Like new intimate music from Final Fantasy is really, really different from Distant Worlds.
It's very different, but different in that it's a small miniaturized chamber version of it. Yeah. Many fans that have attended both of them, many prefer that actually because they're very close to the performers. There is no video. It's just a chamber music concert, and they can really get into the details of the music, which instruments are producing which sounds, that kind of thing. Distant Worlds is a pretty big production. I mean, it's over 100 musicians on stage, big video production. So it's more difficult to put that together in many, many cities. And having the chamber music production allows us to go into places that we can't do. Distant Worlds, like conventions, for instance, or smaller recital halls, things like that. Other cities that we wouldn't be able to get to with Distant Worlds. So it's been very rewarding to be able to do that as well.
So I've heard that you came already in Lyon once,
New York,
that
yes.
you wanted to come back here. You say to Florian.
Lyon, yes, right,
Lyon,
right.
Yeah, the city. Is there something particular in the French public that you like, or the city, maybe?
Well, just in France in general, the fans in Paris and Lyon are fantastic. Well, some of the best some of the most enthusiastic that we run into.
Oh, I'm glad.
But yes, Lyon, we love Lyon because just personally, my wife and I, because the gastronomy here is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
The food is unbelievable in Lyon. And it's a beautiful city, so we really enjoy coming back. But Paris as well. I mean,
yeah, you're coming back in April.
Yes, in April we'll be here back in Paris. Yeah,
okay.
Looking forward to that.
Me too.
Yeah.
I live in Paris, so I'll be there for sure.
Good.
So thank you very much, Arnie.
Thank you.
I was very
Pleasure.
glad to talk to you and to meet you more,
Thank
know
you.
you more. Thank you.
Thank you. See you tonight.
Yeah, see you tonight.